Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman show. And I have a very, very, very special guest today. For those of you who have been watching me for some time, you'll be familiar with this woman. She is my all-round soul sister and bestie. Lorraine Flaherty is probably one of the best therapists and best women I know. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself, Laurie. I won't go into too long of a spiel, but can we just start off by talking a little bit about what's going on at the planet at the moment? Like, what themes are coming up for you in terms of the collective at the moment?
Well, I think everybody is seeing at the moment that there is a real sense of divide that's happening. I think for the last few years, there have been so many things, whether politically or medically, that have caused sort of a fracture between friends, between family, between colleagues. There's been a real sense of having to be on one side or the other. And I think that has kind of, it's escalated into so many different arenas. And never before have we been in a situation where you almost have to take a side, or you've had to make a stand for something that you believe in. And obviously, you and I have travelled all over the world doing, healing work and research. And there've been so many times when we've been in places like France, Montségur, where I remember when we were doing the Cathar Trail, and just that absolute strength of conviction that the Cathars back then had, that meant that they were prepared to die for their beliefs, that there was no way they were going to conform or be forced by authorities or by religion to do what was being imposed upon them. And I remember there was some part of me that had such a huge admiration for those souls who were prepared to literally go to the death for what they believed in, and thinking that in some ways we don't have anything that will challenge or test us like this. But in some ways it almost feels like we've, not that it's to the death as such, but it really does feel like souls are being forced into making big choices at the moment.
It's like a choice. I feel as it's between it's almost black and white, isn't it? It's absolute truth and integrity, or it's nothing. And it's never before been so in our faces as it is now. And I'm with you. Like, I don't think we need to make a stand and say, I'll go to the death over this. I think some of that's perhaps old timeline stuff that we're clearing. I think my thing now is I want to live, but I want to live in absolute truth, absolute divinity, absolute alignment, and absolute unity. And I feel like now we're really seeing that, well, yeah, we don't have to die for it, but it's pretty intense, isn't it? It's pretty intense because, as you say, it's torn families apart, it's torn friendships apart. I'm hearing stories every day from clients who just are being ghosted by friends that they've had for years.
Yeah.
They're just turning and walking out. And I really feel it's not even down to anything logical now. It's like a frequency. It's a frequency mismatch. And if we don't match in frequency, we just can't be in it anymore. It's too uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I think pre the whole lockdown situation, I think a lot of relationships and probably family setups as well, people had there was a routine. And because of the nature of life, in that people get up and they go to work and they leave, people weren't actually spending that much time. I think time was transient. You'd see each other for maybe a few hours. Sometimes people wouldn't see each other, it would only be for a few minutes, first thing in the morning and late at night, and then you're tired, and people weren't spending that much time together. And suddenly people were forced to be locked in their homes with each other for the space of a few years. And I think that has meant that people really had to get to know each other, and they really had to understand more about who these people were and how they operate. Because if you're spending the big chunk of your day at an office or wherever you work, again, presupposing that everybody works in an office, but you're out doing your thing and you're mixing with other people, I think people have different personas, different heads that they wear for the different roles that they play. And suddenly it was kind of everything all in one place, and people were having to reassess, to relearn. And I think that's also contributed to many people suddenly evaluating where they are in life and the choices that they've made. And as you said, so many relationships are now starting to crumble and fall apart because people are no longer prepared to be in a space where they're not on the same page, or they're not in alignment, and they don't want the same things out of life. I'm not necessarily thinking that that's always a bad thing, because I think a lot of people probably just made do. They probably did just tolerate not being particularly happy, but they kind of managed, they muddled through it. And I think what we're seeing now, where things are so glaringly obvious, that people have to make a decision to be happy. And that does mean, and it can be very, very hard, especially when you have commitments and you have, you're embroiled in things with people, making that big decision to actually let go, to honor the self, and to say, no, I choose me, and I'm going to make sure that whatever choices I'm making, irrespective of what society says or what everybody around me says, that actually I can make a choice to be happy.
We're really being asked to choose ourselves, and I think we've been so conditioned to put everybody else's needs first, especially women, especially a lot of women and very empathic, nurturing people. Always that, oh, how can I lift others? But we're really being asked now, how can I be an example to others rather than do it for them, rather than try and fix everything or everyone? How can I make sure I'm honoring my needs really lovingly? And then that creates a slipstream, doesn't it? It's more about inspiring others. And I think, it's absolutely okay. What I'm seeing time after time is also, the other side of, I've got some friends and clients where friends are just walking out of their lives. But then I've also got a lot of stories of people going, wow, I just couldn't stay in that scenario anymore. And that's, yes, again, logical reasons for it, but it's becoming so uncomfortable. It's almost painful now if you've been putting everybody else's needs first, or if you've been trying repeatedly to fix a relationship or to adjust the relationship to kind of try and make it work. It's like we can't squeeze square pegs into round holes anymore. We just can't do it. And it feels really painful, but it also feels like a real birthing process. And it's very revelatory, isn't it? And also this is with our tastes in things as well. The things that we used to love doing, the habits we used to have are all changing and shifting. And I know, well, I've chewed your ear off about the stuff that I've been going through. It's almost been like an entire personality flip in many ways. Like the blinkers are off and we just can't tolerate what isn't resonant with us anymore. And that is through love. I feel like our hearts are opening in such a huge way that in many ways we're allowing that love to actually encapsulate ourselves more and the entirety of our soul more, rather than keeping it in those smaller boxes. But it's really interesting. It's such an interesting time, isn't it? So in terms of like your client work and how you work, have you found that your own way of working has shifted as a result of some of this stuff as well? Because you do incredible sessions. I mean, for those of you watching, Lorraine's sessions have often gone for like 3, 4, even sometimes 5 hours. I think I was strapped in the hypnosis chair for 10 hours one day, and I think we broke for lunch and then went back under. But have you found that your work has changed, and how's that played out for you personally?
I think one of the key themes that's coming up, and you touched on it a moment ago, and it really is something now I'm focusing on, is this getting back to that energy of love, and whichever way you do that. And yes, so with my work, I tend to dive very deeply into the subconscious, and it's about working with higher mind, or whatever we would call it, the unconscious mind. Sometimes even it's like the oversoul part of us that understands who we are. And going back to the work of Jung back in the early 1900s, he talked about individuation, and individuation meant that we were looking for the lost parts of ourselves and trying to reclaim them. And I think that my work now, it really is about finding all of those loose threads and finding the connections between the themes that us as a soul has chosen to be tested on and worked on, and wherever that might be, whether it's from other lifetimes, whether it's from childhood, whether it's from our ancestors, whether it's from beliefs or habits. It's about really diving in deeply. And when you do it from that place of what is preventing the purest essence of love, the unconditional love, which is effectively, what our souls are made of, whatever is in the way, whatever is blocking that, when we go in and look for the glitches and the energies or whatever it might be, the stories, the experiences, whatever is in the way, and we're bringing all of that up to the surface. So it's, the transformation that comes from that means that people are starting to be kinder to themselves. And I think that then becomes part of that letting go, because where people have been okay to tolerate bad behaviors, or to say, oh, it's just the way they are, or, oh, that's just how life is, or, well, my work life is shit, but at least it pays the bills. I think when people come to that place of loving themselves, really deeply, truly loving themselves on the inside, you can't deal with that. It's just not possible. The sort of the vibrational energy of that, the frequency of that, it just doesn't match anymore, and it does become impossible to stay in that. And I'm seeing people really stepping out and actually sometimes, leaving a whole way of life behind. And sometimes they do it gradually, and sometimes they'll just do it in a one quick break. But they're moving into something better, and they're moving into things that are more honouring to them. And again, I've seen people do complete turnarounds in a career. I saw a lawyer who, again, her parents, she wanted, singing was her joy. That was her thing. And her parents said, oh, that's not a career. You can't do that. So she became a lawyer, and she became a very successful lawyer, and she rose up through the ranks and had tried to convince herself that she was making a difference and that this was great, and she was earning great money, and she was ticking all the boxes that she thought she was supposed to tick. And then in one of the sessions that we did, which was a kind of future session, I do a future in focus, where you get to look at alternative versions of your future if you make some changes, and you can view as many of them as you want to. She saw herself in the future singing. And it just hadn't occurred to her that could be a part of her life. It really hadn't. But she was so joyful and so happy in that experience. And within weeks of the session, she'd gone off and found herself a choir to join. And within 3 or 4 weeks of joining the choir, they said, look, you're great. And we actually have, within the big choir, we have a smaller group that actually go out and sing at weddings and sing at functions. We'd love you to join. And it's almost a full-time position. So she quit her job. And, and then they were going off and doing concerts. And, I get this email from her going, you are not going to believe what I'm doing, packing her bag to go off on yet another trip and do something amazing. And that, for me, I mean, it's so uplifting to see somebody like that, who was clearly on the wrong track, but one that society or, the family beliefs of this is what you do to be successful. And here she was, and to be fair, she was probably earning more money doing the singing and being paid to do what she absolutely loved to do. So those kinds of shifts are, they're just so inspiring, really.
It's so phenomenal. And I love, well, you're going through one of these shifts yourself, I feel, because you've now actually launched your own school. So I mean, for those, obviously for those of you watching, I mean, and I'm going to talk from personal experience here a little bit about Lorraine, because I've known you for many, many years now, and your career and your work goes back even way further before we met. But I often think that what Lorraine's work, like what she says in terms of a description of her work, doesn't quite cover it all, because you do obviously past life regression, and we must I must mention here that it's the 10-year anniversary of Lorraine's fantastic book, which is Healing Through Past Life Therapy.
It's blurry. I don't quite know
It's
how
a
to
bit
get it in
blurry in the
focus.
background. I'll flash a picture up. But it's a fantastic book, and these are all incredible case studies of her work. But of course, you do inner child work, incredible ancestral work, life between lives, future life stuff, incredible work. And you are one of the best multidimensional healers and therapists I know. And what I love about you is that you really bridge the worlds of the academic research and all of that. Everything you do can be backed up by the science and the research, and phenomenal stuff. But you also have all the experience of your own gifts, your own abilities, and you bring your own way of seeing the world to your work. And what I find is so exciting now is that you're taking that and you're creating something bigger in the launching of your school. And can you tell us a bit about the school? Because I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be interested in learning from you. It's time, isn't it? It's very needed now, I think.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I've been doing this work now officially for about 23 years, but I was kind of building up to it for 20 years before that in all the sort of work I was doing and the studying and training in a variety of different modalities. So yeah, as you said, I mean, I do energy work and I do energy healing and I do energy clearing, and there's lots of psychic stuff that goes on and there's lots of mediumship that goes on, and I don't really talk about that. That just kind of happens integrally with the work kind of behind the scenes. But myself and Belle Rogers, who we met again, it's probably about 10 years ago, and we had been working on various different projects, and we'd been doing bits of teaching together. She's based in Italy, and we always said we work very similarly. We both have a background in NLP as well, neuro-linguistic programming, and the hypnosis, and we both had such a passion for it. So we decided that when she's got twin boys, when they were grown up and they went off to university, we'd set up our school, and that seemed like it was going to be forever away. And last year off they went, or some point late last year, and so we sat down, we put it all together, and we're now accredited, and the school is called Is-Heart, Is-Heart, which is the International School of Hypnosis and Regression Therapy. And within that, we are going to be teaching in our own kind of way. Belle and I work, obviously we work in a very similar way. And it's, as you know, our sessions are quite long. We tend to dive very deep. There's certain things that you can do that are shorter, but we're very much about not leaving any stone unturned. So even with past life therapy, we don't go in, it's not just past life regression where we go back and see who somebody was in a previous life. That's interesting and important, but actually sometimes that can be a little bit challenging for people to just go and open up the door and have a look and see who you were, because you don't know what you're going to go and look at. It can open up a can of worms. You've got to go in and look at the meaning behind the life and what was the purpose of it and what were you supposed to learn from it and how can we heal from whatever was going on. So the work is very, very in-depth. And yeah, we do kind of, we're working with releasing spirits from homes and people. And there's a whole other dimension working with the mind, with energy. It's very exciting, and again, it's a bit like the book, really. The book was a very long project that took me sort of 9 or 10 years to actually birth, and it feels like the school is the same. I mean, I've been teaching in medical schools for nearly 20 years, and with that process, which I'm incredibly grateful for, it was extraordinary to be there. I was teaching midwives as well. The only thing with that was that I had to work within a very tight framework, because within the medical institution and midwifery, I had to be very, very clinical about the work that I do. And clinical hypnosis is extraordinary and has its place. But my passion, my absolute love, is to work in the esoteric realms. Not in a way that's woo-woo, because I'm not actually, even though I do quite woo-woo stuff.
Well, it is woo-woo, but you make it very normal. Which
I'm not sure whether I love or hate that phrase, but I mean, like spiritual, very deep, esoteric work. And, you know, I find that actually going there, when you dive into the subconscious and we start to look at the multidimensional nature of who we are and, you know, where the challenges lay, or even just to go find resources and, you know, go reconnect with the part of your soul that lives in another dimension or another planet, to, you know, reconnect with who you are. You know, why not?
No, because my guides are just saying, tell her to not leave out the cosmic stuff. You got to talk about the galactic lifetime.
Exactly. You know, there are no limits to what we can do. And I think I've been a little bit constrained because, you know, I also do corporate training. So it's, I think part of me was very conscious, because I knew that sometimes my students in the sort of medical schools would go off, and of course, you know, Google is a thing. They go off and they Google you, and, you know, then they'd be coming back and, you know, making little funny digs about the past life stuff. So it's now, I think it's time to fully embrace all of that and really go sort of very cosmic with it all, and really dive into that multi-dimensional, multi-cosmic space. So yeah, the dates are going to be launched early next year for the first of the training courses. There'll be basic introduction to hypnosis, and then it's the course itself is a 4-module course which will cover all of the bases to give you a kind of diploma in regression therapy. But we also will be doing bespoke, we'll be doing specific workshops and masterclasses. So if people have already trained but they want to just, you know, pick up on one particular area, then they can do that as well. So we're going to make it very flexible so that it's very workable for people. And I'll probably throw in some of the clinical stuff as well, because, you know, it has its place, and we need that.
Bases, right?
Exactly. The knowledge is there. So I just want to share, because I just think that when I see the results of my clients, it's so extraordinary what you can do. You know, and again, talking therapy is fantastic. I personally went through a journey of 5 years of talking therapy for my own healing, and it has its place. But for me, nothing is more profound, and you'll know yourself anyway, because, you know, we both work within that realm. When you dive into the subconscious realm, the kind of, you know, the database of the subconscious of the mind where all the information is, and you make changes at that level, then profound shifts and changes can happen.
Phenomenal things can happen.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me, though. Like, I think when we look at our individual journeys and we zoom out and see kind of our place in the collective and the way that we work and the lens through which we operate, you and I very, very much walk our talk. We're always embodying the lessons that we teach, and we walk through so many initiations. But it's interesting talking to you now and talking about the school and how it's almost like you were doing this, and I'm just thinking, she's spreading her wings. And I've often thought, you know, she's playing it a bit safe. Why isn't she going out there and talking about this esoteric side and the more cosmic side? And why is she having to play it so safe? And it's a bit like you've been flying under the radar a bit, Laurie. You know, and, you know, but I think this is a message for all of us who are, you know, we're living examples of the divine, aren't we? And we're all of those of us viewers, all of you guys that are drawn to this channel for whatever reason, we're all here to be these living examples, aren't we, of what we know, of what we believe. And I know that there's also been a fundamental agenda to shut us down, to shut down the truth, to prevent people from awakening and expanding their consciousness, and to stepping into their power. But the more of us that really say yes to it, without fear, without shame, without embarrassment, and we just, or without worry about, you know, being judged or called woo-woo or called weird. And you said yourself many years, you know, weirdo was your nickname at school. So
and that was the thing I was the proudest of. So yeah. I think for me, it was just being respectful of the role that I had and the responsibility that I had to these students to keep things in a safe container. So it was definitely not through any fear of being judged or being seen as being weird. It was just, you know, I had this role that I had to play as this, you know, teacher. And I'd already been thrown out of one of the medical schools. I won't name which one, but, you know, they actually called me in front of one of the boards because one of the psychology department teachers actually did say that they were worried about what I was teaching their students, and they thought that what I was teaching was too woohoo. It was too It was too out there. And actually, when I went and had to speak my case and talk about what I was doing, and talked about the fact that I was there to expand the minds of the students and open them up to new possibilities. And I think the psychology teacher's line was that they stood on the shoulders of the giants that went before us. That was her, idea, that I shouldn't be bringing these new ideas in. And I said, but if we remained on the shoulders of the giants and we didn't actually learn and evolve and grow, we wouldn't have any cures for anything. We wouldn't be able to change it. There would be no advancement. And I said, I actually respect the fact that the students are smart enough to recognise what they want to take on board, what they don't want to take on board, what works for them, what resonates with them. The students for which it doesn't work are going to ignore any of the teachings. And the ones that get it will thrive and they will continue to expand. And I had so many students that would come to me afterwards. To be fair, loads of them did actually come to see me afterwards for esoteric hypnosis sessions, but loads of them went on to be hypnotherapists. They loved what we were talking about. It made complete sense. I mean, here's a world that doesn't teach the students the connection between the mind and the body.
No, that's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
It just literally hurts my head. They weren't taught that actually what you put into your body is going to affect the output and how you experience the world, your ability to function well. So I'd have to educate them about drinking water, not drinking fizzy drinks and not eating junk. And suddenly
these healers. These are supposed to be the healers.
They're halfway through the course and going, oh my God, for the first time in 2 years, I can actually concentrate. I can sleep at night. I can actually remember what happened in a lecture. Like, guys, this isn't rocket science. So, it's a shame that it's not more widely accepted, and that, the medical world hasn't quite caught up with the fact that our minds are so infinitely powerful, and that if we train them properly and if we use them properly, what we can achieve. I would say it's like the mind is like a puppy. If you don't teach it right from the beginning, if you allow bad habits to just run off with you, like negative thinking or bad beliefs, bad habits, you're in trouble, because that is just going to be the way you operate for the rest of your life. And the greatest joy is teaching somebody how very simply you can actually change all of those things, like the control that people can have over themselves, over their mind, over what they achieve and what they do. And it, in some lights, it actually does appear magical.
It is. And I love that how you were so beautifully positioned at that time. If we look at another one of the huge themes that's going on our planet at the moment is obviously the medical system is massively in the spotlight, and has been massively in the spotlight for the last couple of years. And
yeah.
And I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes with this. YouTube might block me, but we're seeing so many shifts within that system, and we're seeing in all the systems, we're seeing yes. where those systems are broken, where they are corrupt, where they've been a bit one-track minded, and this one-size-fits-all solution for everybody just does not work. And this need to bridge the worlds of holistic health and complementary health into the world of science and medicine, I think, has never before been more poignant.
Yeah.
And again, I think in the same way that we've had that split in relationship or that split timelines, we're really seeing that split down the middle of like health, of the business world, people stepping out. We've got all these incredible young entrepreneurs going, I'm not working for the man anymore. And it's like it's an old sinking ship, isn't it? The old those old structures and ways.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even the education system is having to change. The new kids that are coming in are just not fitting into the program. They just don't want to do it. They're just not conforming, which kind of reminds me of me. I think I was kind of ahead of my time, because I never conformed anyway. And I loved school, but only because I was able to kind of work it to my own advantage. And I'd cherry pick the bits that I liked and really focus on that. And then lessons that I wasn't really interested in, I'd read the book. I'd read the sort of textbook in the first couple of weeks, absorb all the knowledge, and then go off and raise money for charity, or just go off and do other things, and just dip in and out when I needed to top up the knowledge. I was quite lucky that I could do that and still pass the exams at the end of it. But I think now everything is having to change. We've been so institutionalized with so many things. And so for all the controls that are coming in and the negative side of it, I think what we're seeing is a breaking free. And that's the bit I think that is to be celebrated, in that people are, I guess it's almost like wartime, suddenly everyone went crazy and partied and fashion changed and then everybody was more upbeat. We came out of lockdown and I think loads of people just went, oh, we just need to live. We just need to celebrate. So anything that people are involved with that raises their vibration, and you and I have said this, for years and years, we traveled a lot and we were always on the go, and everything we did, everything turned into a great big deep spiritual adventure where we would be clearing energies and would be diving in. Not that doesn't happen, it still happens anyway.
I mean, it happened last week.
It's inevitable. We turn up somewhere and we'll know that there's a thing that we have to
going resolve. To lunch, universe.
I know. Can we just have a break? But both of us have made a commitment, which and I just haven't done for so many years, to dress up, to celebrate, to dance, and to do things that are bringing us pure joy. And I think that is just as impressive in the capacity for healing as actually just sitting down and meditating and diving in and doing the work. Let's just amplify all the good feelings and all the good energies that we can by doing what we love. And I love dancing and dressing up, listening to great music and being with like-minded people. So it blows my mind how many festivals are now popping up. And I think when you look back at in the past, the way people entertain themselves was, it was communities would get together and they would celebrate. You look at the old May Day celebrations and all of those, kind of pagan ceremonies and rituals. It would be the people getting together, being in nature and celebrating. There would be music, there would be dancing. And it really does feel like that shift is bringing us back to that. Who thought I'd get you camping?
I know, right? Me without a proper bathroom, darling. Well, in fairness, we're glamping, but
we are glamping.
It's only a hop, skip, and a jump away from.
Absolutely, but I'm very proud of you because you've started to embrace it. But just being in that space, being in nature, and taking things back to the simple is just. It's so healing for everybody.
It's incredible, isn't it? It really is. With so many of these shifts going on. This whole thing about just being in your joy, it is powerful. Like joy and your raising your vibration is the most powerful protection you can have against anything, and I think the more of us that allow ourselves to do it, it's not about bypassing, but acknowledge what's going on, but let your hair down. And I really feel that there are people, this attempt to really restrict people and to really kind of herd us all together, I just think it's going to completely fall apart and combust at one point, because if you keep putting people under pressure, eventually there will be a kickback, there will be a breakout, there has to be a reaction somewhere. How many more curtailments of freedoms do we need, and where does it stop being about protection and safety and just start being about ridiculous levels of control? But I do feel like some of that has been I guess because of the conditioning that we've all been under through lifetimes and lifetimes. I'm really seeing where there's almost self-imposed restrictions, where I've put restrictions on myself, where I've denied myself joys or happinesses because of following someone else's rules, because of following the status quo, or something that I'm like, or desires I thought I wanted have completely changed overnight because I suddenly woke up and went, hang on a minute, are these actually my desires, or am I just following what I think I should be doing? And it really felt real at the time, and that may shift again. But we all reserve the right to change our minds and to try different things on for size, and to venture down different pathways, and to explore all those beautiful facets of what we call the myriad of experiences of life, right? It's so multidimensional and beautiful.
Absolutely. And again, I think when you bring people together, for whatever the purpose, whether it is for healing, whether it's just for meditation, whether it's just to converse, whether it is to dance or celebrate. There's an amplification of whatever it is that you're doing, especially if it's like-minded people who are kind of on the same track. And I think that on the spiritual path, there is this idea that, which you and I've kind of dipped in and out of, and I've sort of fluctuated between one path or another, where there's this idea that you have to be terribly pious to be spiritual, that you can't party, that you can't have a glass of wine, that you have to, you have to be completely, you've got to be vegan, you've got to be there, to be a pure being. And actually, I found now that it's all about balance, and there are no rules, and you do have to be able to let your hair down and celebrate, and everything in moderation, obviously. Take care of yourself and look after yourself. But I think that that old idea of rules, just anything that's restricting you and holding you back, as long as anything that you're doing isn't causing any harm to anybody else, be that animal, human, universe, nature, whatever, as long as it is harm to none, then live your life and be free. And so we should probably talk about, before lockdown, you and I were just starting to do some amazing retreats as well.
Absolutely. That was going to be my next question, because we need to talk about the earth service work
doing these trips and taking people to sacred sites, or just getting together, taking people away from their everyday world, and then literally diving in and doing the deep work, which, again, my sessions are really long, because a lot of them are really long, because I'm conscious that if you to dip in and out of things, it's not quite so easy. Whereas if you just go at it, if you just really, really dive in deep, you can find all the threads, and you can put all of the pieces together. It's not getting interrupted, and you're not sort of starting the beginning with a new habit and then another one gets in its place. You can kind of do it all in one go, change the program. So that's why I think retreats have also, holidays with a purpose, have become so much more popular. So you and I have been joining Wonderment for the Thailand retreats, which has been amazing. So
it's coming up in October, so I'll put the dates for that one below.
Yeah.
And we have obviously the Wazing Woodland one here in the UK in September, so I'll stick all those links. Yeah. Please come and join us. It's amazing.
So September's the weekend, which is out in nature. We'll be dancing under the stars in the middle of the woods, and I think it's probably some of our most joyous times that we've had. Thailand in October. Belle and I will be running a retreat in Portugal in November. That will be a 5-day kind of deep dive into clearing all the stuff that's been coming up through the year, and resetting, so that the new year starts with new goals in place. It's called Love, Life and You. So it's all about coming back to love. Mm-hmm. And then, really excitingly for us, we're going back to Egypt, aren't we?
We're going back to Egypt. So we're planning to run one of our fantastic Divine Origins retreats. And
which has been a long time coming. We've been waiting to get back out there.
I think, last time we ran that. And obviously the pandemic put a kibosh on running retreats. But we're going to be back, and we're
probably March next year. We haven't got the exact dates in, but we're in talks with our fabulous Egyptian brother, Hamdi, who is going to be... He's a magician at pulling out the stops for very magical
things.
Getting
us into the places that you're actually not really supposed to go. We have a lot of amazing synchronicities. The universe tends to open up to support us, doesn't it, in our service work? So, totally. And I would suggest, if those of you watching are interested in coming on our Egypt retreat, so that we can keep you informed, if you go on to either mine or Lorraine's website and sign up for our newsletters, then we can keep you informed via our mailing lists and things like that. Also on social media, we'll be sharing, and again, I'll put the links to those below. And once we have the exact dates, we'll be sending out information for those of you who'd like to book. And we go to extraordinary places. We actually go to places that not a lot of Egyptian retreats will take you. So we go to places like Siwa. We camp in the desert with the Siwan people. We go to places like Aten and where Memphis, Akhenaten and Nefertiti were. But it's not just about visiting these temples. We actually go, we delve in, we feel into the energy. You will go through your own personal initiations. The land itself is very awake there, isn't it? And these temples are like star portals. They're absolutely phenomenal. And we haven't had an experience yet where people haven't had a profound experience either of retrieving a part of their soul, having a past life experience, or speaking with beautiful loving beings. One of my favorite stories, and I think I might have written about this in the book, one of my favorite stories is we went into one of the tombs there and we actually released Akhenaten's daughter. Her soul was trapped in a load of young people. And we released these young people from the tombs, and we were like, well, we know that they were murdered. We were given that information. And of course, the universe always brings us evidence. And remember that Haydar, then when we left the tomb, said, oh, there's an archaeologist down the hill. Do you want to go meet her? And it was an Australian woman, female archaeologist. And we marched down there and we introduced ourselves and we said, oh, what have you found here? And she said, well, it's all these tombs of young people. And we just released all their souls. So we got all the evidence that we needed, that the work we were doing was absolutely real. And
we did. But also, if you remember, she was under the impression that it had been a society and that this was all Akhenaten's fault and that these people had all died at his hands. And we were kind of there.
She tried to tell us that they had worked these young people to death. Now, this is the story that the Egyptologists are fed by whoever. But you will often find that when we go on these retreats, we actually uncover the truth. We get the real story.
Absolutely. And the truth was that these souls had volunteered. They were so passionate about the truth and about, again, a bit like the Cathars, it was the exact same energy. They believed so completely in everything that Akhenaten was trying to do that they were prepared to stay and push themselves and work to and continue to work right to the very death in honor of
they'd actually been murdered. We picked up that the water source was poisoned because the priests wanted them to go back to Thebes, and it was really a taking down of that dynasty, wasn't it? There was a dedicated attempts to take them down, and I actually believe Tutankhamun was murdered as well, and I think that whole family was wiped out deliberately.
Absolutely. But I think we really confused the archaeologist, didn't we? She didn't quite know where to go with it.
She was like, she was just repeating the rhetoric that she was told. It was a very 3D kind of, well, this is the story, and we're like,
Akhenaten, the heretic king, the one that was, trying to destroy everything that was right. And we said, no. Actually, if you go back and look, the rest of them were all just about the money. And he was the one that was preaching love and connection and family and celebration and joy.
Refusing to go to war, refusing to fight.
Absolutely. And was the instigator of the Lord's Prayer, which was all about honouring self, and which again was absorbed and taken on by other traditions later on. We won't go into that one now, but I think it was like so many times when we do this work, we're plonked right in the place, right at that moment, because we could see her kind of, suddenly a different version of the story, and one that she hadn't even contemplated. So we don't know what she actually did with the information that we've given her, but I hope
I don't necessarily think they're allowed to stand up to it, are they? But what was phenomenal was that we had seen where the wall had eroded away in the tomb. I actually have photographs of it. I have to try and dig them out. Was the side profile of Akhenaten's daughter with the same sort of elongated head, incredible, very cosmic looking features. So we got loads of evidence. There were orbs going everywhere, weren't there? We had video footage of orbs everywhere, and phenomenal. And even our tour guides were having incredible experiences of forgiving themselves and finding their past life aspects. And, it's nuts. We could talk about it till the cows come home, but
absolutely,
it's one of those things you have to be there to believe it and have the experience yourself. You don't take our word for it. And You know, we're hands on. We're very in service in the work that we do. It's not just going and being a tourist. It's
No,
you're going there to do deep work on yourself, to do therapeutic work on yourself, to work through your blocks, and to remember who you are, and to access more of your own gifts, and integrate your timelines, and remember your own truth, and come into sacred union is what it's all about, really, isn't it?
absolutely, yeah. Bring it all back to love. And what we love so much about doing that work is when the people turn up, it's exactly who is meant to be there. And there's always really strong connections between the people in the group. And sometimes it doesn't come out straight away, but later the pennies start to drop about who these people are and who they were and the connections that they had in other lifetimes. And of course, it's all about clearing karma as well.
Yeah.
You know, people are coming back together so that they can heal, so that they can either forgive each other for past wrongs, or they can put right past wrongs, or they just reconnect. They just celebrate that union as you know, that sense that people have when they feel like they've known each other forever but they've never met before, and it's because they've come back to complete whatever their soul's mission really is.
Wonderful, magical. Some of our favorite experiences, and really interesting. I was very blessed recently. Those of you who've seen my interview with lovely Pam Gregory, she doesn't actually do one-on-one readings, but I was so blessed recently because she very kindly did my astrocartography for me. And some of the other places Lorraine and I go is Los Angeles and California,
Yeah.
and that stretch. And I was born and raised in Australia. All my astrocartography says that I'm most at home in Egypt, Australia, and California. So I'm like, these are my favorite places where I've always felt very at home and connected to the land. So I can't wait to go back to Egypt. I always feel like it's the land of the sun, isn't it? It's
absolutely. But
so,
I think California is calling us as well, isn't it? So
absolutely.
I think so next year, I think we need to be looking at getting back there, back to Mount Shasta, back to Sedona. I think there needs to be some retreats out there as well. The biggest problem that I have at the moment in life is that there are no longer enough weekends or weeks in the year to actually do all of this amazing stuff.
Can we just talk about time distortion too? Because this is something that's going on as part of the ascension. Time is all over the shop at the moment. And I can't believe we're already, as we record this in August. I mean, also, I'm going to be home in Australia at the end of the year. I'm hoping to run some workshops and events out there. So if you're Aussie and you're based in Australia, or if you fancy a trip to Australia, keep an eye out on my website. And again, I'll put any links below, but I haven't set dates just yet. But I think the best thing to do is, yes, follow me on socials or sign up to the newsletter, and I'll keep you posted. But yes,
who knows? I might even join you out there. Who knows?
You should this time, darling. I think it would be rude not to, just quietly.
I think Uluru is calling. It's been calling for a while.
Calling us, isn't it? And you know, I always want to get back to Byron Bay. It's not that far from Coffs, although it's becoming a little bit commercialized now. But it still has, you know, the underlying, you know, the energy of the land there. It's just beautiful. And well, we're up for some adventures, if you guys are up for some adventures. So, you know, let us know if anyone's interested. Drop us an email, or, you know, the best way I think is to sign up for our newsletters, and we'll keep you all posted. And yes, the time thing I think is interesting, because now all of a sudden we've been talking for almost an hour, and I don't know where that went. And actually, this evening we're off out to the theatre, aren't we, Laurie? So
we are. We're off to see the Wizard.
We're off to see the Wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, and
which is in my book. I use the Wizard of Oz as it's kind of the sort of thread that brings the book together, using the idea as it's kind of the metaphor for life. You know, the yellow brick road being the path of life, and then obviously the characters in it representing love and wisdom and courage and adventure, and then the Wicked Witch as the adversity that you need to evolve and grow as a soul. So it's my favouriteest story ever. So I'm really looking forward.
The time we're in now, isn't it? The stripping back of illusions, the pulling back of that curtain,
and seeing what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah.
So it feels like the most fitting end to our fabulous chat today, and I'm going to see you very shortly to actually see you in person. So
well, thank you very much for having me and for letting me share some of the things that I'm really excited about. And yeah, if anyone has questions about anything, they can get in touch, drop me a line. There's lots of information on my website, which can either be lorraineflaherty.com or innerjourneys.co.uk.
beautiful. I love it. And I also know that you're currently working on several new books. So watch this space, because she's been a very, very busy girl the last couple of years.
And I probably should mention because I always forget about this bit, the mandala workshops as well, which is tapping into your innate creativity. So those are a thing as well, but it'll all be on the website. So
it'll all be on the website, and you'll be doing some of that at the Wonderment, won't you?
Yes, I'll be doing mandala workshops for the adults and for the kids as well, because the kids love it. And if anybody has children, nothing is better than keeping them occupied by painting mandalas that are very methodical and get them totally immersed and get them lost in it for hours. Don't stick them in front of the TV or a Game Boy. Give them a piece of paper and a pen and a circle, and they get lost in it for hours. It's fantastic.
So beautiful. Oh, honey, so lovely to talk to you. And I just to say to people, please join us at the Wonderment. I mean, I think that's the next big thing we have coming up. And we come and hang out in person, have a hug. We've had all those years of lockdowns. I think there's nothing more beautiful in terms of raising vibration to be amongst like-minded community. There's a beautiful lake there you can swim in. Everything's outdoors. With mermaids. Workshops.
Mermaids in the lake.
Mermaids. We have open mic nights. There's poetry. There's music. As Laurie said, there's stargazing. But also the best thing about it is that it's not just a festival. It's a retreat festival. Yeah. So there's
healing workshops all day.
Beautiful in-depth workshops, and you can pick and choose your own adventure. There's lots of different practitioners and healers, and it's just a big love in, really, isn't it? It's amazing. So we hope to see you there, and we hope to see you again soon. And have a beautiful time. And you, young lady, I'll see you on the yellow brick road in about an hour.
And I'll get my red shoes on.
We'll get the red shoes. I've got the red dress. I don't have red shoes. I do have red shoes, but I've got a red dress. Anyway, lost my... See, the ability to not speak is also an ascension symptom. Feeling tongue-tied. Anyway, thank you so much. And just saying thank you to Laurie for speaking to me again. If any of you are new to her work, if you go back through my channel, you'll see historic interviews and adventures with Lorraine. We've been, some of our Rennes le Chateau, Mary Magdalene pilgrimage stuff is in the earlier videos. And I have earlier interviews with her as well, if you're curious to know more about her work. But do follow her on social media. Do reach out to her if you're interested in exploring all of the ethers that make you you. So thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, Laurie, and
thank you so much.
Thank you.